It's safe to say that Welsh Rugby has had a rich and colourful history, full of times of great dominance and others of embarrassing losses, times of great pride but others of abject shame, times of utter jubilation but also many of pure frustration. And when I look back at those frustrating times, one memory sticks in my heart more than any other. A wet evening at Eden Park, where Wales were looking as favourites to secure their first ever World Cup final appearance. There was only two things standing in the way of a final with host New Zealand in their home World Cup, and that was a French side in slight disarray and the referee Alain Rolland. Now, for some context, heading into this game, it was widely reported that the French senior players had basically ousted coach Marc Lièvremont. In fairness, the Frenchman had had a tumultuous few years as coach of his national country. He'd had a difficult relationship with the press, struggled to ever really find his best team, and knowing going into this game that he would be being replaced at the end of the Rugby World Cup, as the French Rugby Union had announced that Philippe Saint-André was going to be taking over as head coach. This obviously made it difficult for him to handle the more senior players in the group, and as France struggled through the group stages, losing to New Zealand and a shock 1914 loss to Tonga, who were actually only ranked 16 in the world at the time, the rumours began to leak out that the players were no longer taking instructions from the coach and they were basically conducting training and team selection themselves, which is just nuts when you think about it. They had, in fairness, just squeezed out of the group stages but managed to show some heart and grind past England in the quarter-finals. Wales, on the other hand, were the real surprise package of the World Cup. They had performed well in the group stages and comfortably dispatched Ireland 22-10 in the quarter-finals and unearthed some quality young players along the way. These young players, along with some grizzled veterans like Gethin Jenkins, Adam Jones and Mike Phillips, had proven over the tournament that they were a top quality outfit and could beat anyone on any given day. Heading into this game, there was a lot of expectation from Welsh fans. They had packed out the Millennium Stadium at 8:30 in the morning, which had been turned into like a fan zone type thing with big screens, and this just shows the excitement that the Welsh people were feeling. And when you look at the team sheet on that day, you can see why. I mean, look at this starting 15. No disrespect to the current crop, but any of these players would walk straight into the current Welsh team. And that just shows how much of a golden generation it was. Interestingly though, there was one key injury, and that was Rhys Priestland, who failed a fitness test with a shoulder injury he'd picked up in the previous match, and he would be replaced by James Hook. Now, as good as James Hook was, Priestland was head and shoulders above any other 10 in Wales at the time. And to be fair, he'd really got the backline purring, in particular Jamie Roberts, who really benefited from Priestland's top quality distribution. On the French side, interestingly, they named an unchanged starting 15 for the first time in Thomas Lièvremont's 4 seasons in charge, just adding to the speculation that the senior players had taken over. As the national anthems rung out in Auckland, most of the players were visibly jittery, but not Sam Warburton. The Welsh skipper looked cool as you like as he prepared for the biggest game in his young career. The nerves and the poor elements, though, did make for a scrappy first 5 minutes. But an early Welsh attack led to France giving away a penalty through Captain Thierry Dusautoir, which gave James Hook an opportunity for 3 points. And in fairness, he comfortably slotted it from the left touchline, dampening the nerves of everyone wearing red. The real issues, though, began shortly after for Wales, as the cornerstone of the Welsh scrum, Adam Jones, was forced off after only 9 minutes of the match. And, Jones had been a mainstay in that front row for many years and had given Wales so much stability at scrum time, so this was a massive loss. The poor conditions then added more issues for Wales as James Hook slipped, attempting a fairly simple 3 points, which was more or less straight on and a far more simple kick than the first one he nailed. But even with that miss, Wales were clearly in the ascendancy and had the better of the opening exchanges. The game, though, turned on the most pivotal of incidents. Now, before even doing the research for this video, I just remember that this incident happened on the 17th minute because it scorched into my brain, unfortunately. France had a line out on around the halfway mark, and as the ball came off the top, Yashvili popped a short pass to winger Vincent Clerc, coming on a short line. Unfortunately for Clerc, though, waiting for him was the Welsh captain, who'd perfectly read the move and put in a big hit, lifting the winger up in the air, but losing control of him and dropping him onto the top of his back. The French players instantly reacted and a small scuffle ensued as the referee Alain Rolland blew for a penalty. The Welsh fans held their breath, myself included, and waiting for the referee to decide the extent of the punishment. Now, at first glance, it does look bad. I'll hold my hand up. Warburton lifts the winger and his legs above his head, and he does lose control of him, and he does slam down on his shoulder and neck area. But as you watch the replay in slow motion, it's easy to notice that it was more like a loss of control than any sort of malicious intent. Like, he didn't drill him into the ground or anything. And add to that the fact that Clerc obviously reads that he's about to get smashed by one of the best tacklers in the world and slows down going into contact, which, goes in with less force, and Warburton was probably expecting a full collision, so he's gone in super hard. Clerc sort of like pulled back a bit, and the ensuing tackle is just a massive hit from Warburton. Now, I obviously have to caveat that with the fact that it is the tackler's responsibility to bring the player down safely, so like a card was not out of the question. But most people, including myself and the commentary team, saw the tackle as a yellow card at most, as I said, Warburton had not driven Clerc into the ground. I mean, Michael Owen on the broadcast was even commenting,
I think that's very, very harsh to get a yellow card for that.
I mean, also you've got to take into account that this was over 10 years ago, so the tight rules on head contact hadn't really come in yet at all, so, it was less strict. But as we saw Warburton sit down on the sideline, the gravity of the situation began to run through the Welsh fans, as we realised with shock that the card that was shown was not a yellow, but in fact a red. I mean, you can hear in Nick Mullen's voice on commentary that he's absolutely shocked to the core that this was a red card.
Well, is that a red card? Is that a red card rather than a yellow card for this? It's a red card!
Even stating that
one of the most controversial decisions in the history of the World Cup.
And I agree with you, Nick. As the game restarts, both commentators try to work out in their head just how the referee come to such a drastic decision in such a big game.
I think he's got that completely wrong. I don't think it should be a sin bin. I think a penalty maybe.
Now, I will give the referee a bit of grace here. This was before the time where the TMO would regularly come in for foul play and stuff, and a lot of the decision making was left to the referee on the pitch, and he only gets one chance to look at the incident. But that's the only grace I'm going to give him, because the fact that he reacted so instantly with a red card is just so reactionary this early in a game with so much gravity and so much on the line. I mean, the referee is entitled to take a minute, let the situation calm down, speak to his fellow touch judges, take some time to formulate the decision and go from there. But Alain Rolland, who is half French I might add, didn't do this. He instantly branded Warburton with a straight red, leaving Wales to play for the next hour with 14 men. So after less than 20 minutes of rugby, Wales had taken the lead, lost their first choice tight head, forcing Paul James to come on at 3, and lost their talismanic captain, who had been one of the best players of the tournament. And this loss in personnel, it told instantly, with France winning a scrum penalty, which led to their first 3 points, evening out the score. And the French instantly had their tails up. A charge down of James Hook on the Welsh line, nearly leading to the first try of the game, but stout Welsh defence repelled the French attack. And this gave Wales confidence as they then attempted to build some pressure themselves, earning another penalty from James Hook from a similar position to his last one. But unfortunately though, it was the same outcome as Hook pushed the ball wide to the right. Frustratingly, Lee Halfpenny's world-class kicking was not really featured heavily for Wales at this point. He was kind of used exclusively as a long-range specialist, a bit like what Gavin Henson was. But you can only imagine that if he had been on the kicking duties from the start, that Wales might have been 9 points to 3 up at this point, as Hook did look slightly nervous and not his mercurial best. But that, my friends, is pure speculation, of course. As halftime approached, Dan Lydiate, who had already got through a mountain of work at this point, attempted a counter-ruck and a jackal but fell on the ball, giving France and Morgan Parra an opportunity to take a shot at goal. and which they did, and ended up leading for the first time, making the score 6-3. As the ref blew for half-time, the broadcast went into the studio, and the pundits did not hold back. Francois Pienaar, Martin Williams, and even Lawrence Dallaglio took it in turns to criticise the referee and his red card decision.
Wrong, it's wrong, it's wrong. I've calmed down now. I was livid. It's wrong. He's killed the game.
Worse. Your reaction?
Yeah, I think, he's got to have more empathy for the game. It's the first 20 minutes of a semi-final, and he's put a great hit on him, stopped him right on the gain line, which what Sean would have asked for, but it's a ridiculous decision and killed the game.
He's supposed to be one of the best referees in the world. I'm sorry, he has made a terrible decision there.
Terrible.
Unfortunately, though, that would not help the Welsh team, who emerged for the second half knowing that they had a mountain to climb, but knowing that they were more than capable of pulling off something special. In the first 20 minutes of the second half, the game became very scrappy, with France trying to just basically grind out opportunities, and the Red Welsh wall valiantly tackling everything that moved. A moment of note, though, was on the 45-minute mark when Stephen Jones came on for his 103rd cap to replace James Hook. But sort of at this point, the set piece was becoming a real issue. The scrum and the line-out really began to fall apart for Wales, and France started eking out more and more penalties, which eventually added to another 3 points for Para, making the total 9-3 to France. But Wales didn't back down. As the 60-minute mark approached, Wales rose themselves for a rare attack into the French 22. First things first, they managed to get the line out right, and as their big ball players stepped up with big carries through Roberts, Ryan Jones and Faletau, and as these players made some nice dents in the French defence, they fold around a little bit too hard. Mike Phillips picks up, goes on an arcing run, throwing the trademark dummy and fend as he gallops in from 22 metres out, pointing to the try line as he goes, winding up the French players like only Mike Phillips can. Absolute class. And as Welsh fans erupted along with the players on the pitch, we started to believe that we can pull off the most of unlikely of victories. I mean, let's look at this. This is just vintage Mike Phillips, isn't it? What a player he was, eh? All that Wales needed to take the lead was the conversion from Stephen Jones. A fairly regulation one, I might say, from a player who already had 965 test points. The drama in this game, though, continues. As Jones took the conversion, I remember my heart sinking as he pulls the kick to the left upright, meaning that Wales would have to dig deep again and muster something special if they wanted to win this game. And dig deep the brave Welsh players did. All 14 players flying around the pitch, doing everything they can to impact the game and make Wales an opportunity. Faletau again having a massive impact with a barnstorming run in open space, giving an opportunity for Stephen Jones to have another drop goal, although he was never really set for it and scuffs it under good French pressure. The next 10 to 15 minutes are just frantic, in fairness. Wales are the aggressors trying to force something, as France simply just hold on to that 1 point lead. Now, I don't want to be critical of Stephen Jones here or overcritical, but Wales have like a prolonged period on the French 22, and we're just not going anywhere, just side to side to side, and he never drops into the boot for a drop goal. I'm not really sure why he didn't, but Wales are just going nowhere, and he actually knocks it on himself, carrying the ball in. So I'm not sure who was making that call, but in such a pivotal moment of the game, you would have thought an experienced player like him would just sit back, calm himself, and nail it, but it didn't happen. Anyway, as the game winds down into its final minutes, it looks for all certainty that the opportunities are now gone, and France were going to squeeze through in the meekest of fashions. But this game, if not high scoring, was of course high drama, and with the clock reading 75 minutes, France conceded a penalty on roughly the halfway line, and this really left Wales with only one real option, and that was a long-range shot from fullback Lee Halfpenny, who had been absolutely imperious all game. Interestingly, when you look at this penalty, I think it's really harsh on France. Charteris presents the ball, and then as the French players come into jackal, he pulls it back and then re-presents it. So I mean, you could agree that should have been a penalty for France, maybe. So with my conspiracy hat firmly on, I think Alain Rolland is trying to even out the mistake he made for Wales earlier and give them the opportunity to win, I think, to take the heat off himself. But that's just my opinion. I don't know, what do you guys think of this? Anyway, this kick was basically bang on halfway. But we had seen Halfpenny nail these types of kicks fairly regularly in his young career. Also, as Welsh fans, we kind of can't help but flash back to times where we won with long-range dramatic kicks for dramatic wins. As Halfpenny prepares himself for the kick, the French fans boo and whistle, but everyone in red sits silently, hoping and praying. He takes a deep breath, steps up, and bang, straight down the middle. The Welsh fans jump to their feet, but as the ball flies through the air and begins to dip, we sink to our knees as Halfpenny's kick slides under the crossbar. Agonisingly close is the only way you can describe it. I mean, it's a mighty effort from 50 metres out, which literally failed by just 2 foot. You can just see the agony in poor Halfpenny's face. I mean, his performance in this match definitely deserved that kick to go over. It's absolutely gut-wrenching. But in fairness, those brave boys in red didn't leave anything on the pitch. For the last 5 minutes, they battered and hammered away at the French defence, which, in fairness, after Mike Phillips' try, was flawless. For 25 phases, the tired bodies of Wales knocked at the door as the tired Frenchmen refused to open. Eventually, Wales cough up control of possession.
Jones. Oh, and the ball's been lost, and the French have picked it up.
And the French players celebrate with pure relief of squeezing past their opponents in the slimmest of margins. And even though Wales come out on the wrong side of this result, you have to just applaud both sets of players and just say what a game that was. France's defence was heroic in that second half, and to a man, the Welsh players worked like absolute animals from minute 17 to minute 18. But I definitely think it's worth mentioning a few individuals. First of all, Luke Charteris got through so much work, carrying lineouts, hitting rucks. He didn't stop. Lydiate was superb, and until he was replaced by an equally superb Ryan Jones coming off the bench. Halfpenny has absolutely nothing to be ashamed of missing that kick. He was flawless in every asset of that game, commanding the air and always getting further over the gain line than he probably should. Phillips did a great job controlling things while Wales were down to 14 men, and of course that brilliant solo effort to bring us so close to victory. And of course Faletau and Roberts, who constantly gained yards and constantly got over the gain line without any regard for their own bodies. The blame, of course, will always fall at the feet of the referee, and I think he certainly deserves a large portion of that criticism. But as Welsh fans, we have to be brutally honest. We still should have won that game, because even though we spent most of the game with one man down, we dominated for large portions, forcing France to make double the amount of tackles that we did. And if either of Hook's 2 penalties, Stephen Jones' conversion, or Halfpenny's penalty went over, Wales would have secured the win that they most certainly deserved. Now, before I wrap up, it's well worth pointing out the fact that the French side went on to the final and pushed New Zealand right to the brink in their home World Cup, and ironically losing themselves by 1.7 points to 8. Feeling some of the pain they dealt on us maybe a week before? Wales went into the bronze medal match against Australia and ended up losing another close game 21-18. But I just think the come down from the week before was just too much to overcome for the boys in red. They'd given everything and just come up short, and I just think it took the winds out their sails. Interestingly, when you hear Sam Warburton talk about the red card incident now, he actually explains that he was really nervous about coming back to Wales, and he thought he was going to be like a David Beckham in the World Cup character, where he's hated by the Welsh rugby public and everyone blamed him for the red card. But of course, when he came back, everyone was stopping him on the street saying, "You were hard done by, it was wrong." So obviously you didn't need to worry about that one, Sam. We still love you. And well, of course, this is a Welsh channel, and I obviously have a bias, but I do my best to be realistic. But in my humble opinion, if Warburton hadn't had that red card, Wales would have gone on to beat France in that game. And I might cop it a little bit in the comments for this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think Wales would have gone on to beat New Zealand, who were under so much pressure in their own World Cup and were a bag of nerves without Dan Carter. And Wales would have gone in with all that momentum, all that pride of winning that game in the semi-finals, and I think it would have carried them through. But I mean, you never know. Feel free to take aim at me in the comments over that one. But to this day, this was our best opportunity to win a World Cup. And if we're being brutally honest, might be the only real opportunity we get, at least for a very, very long time. And it truly does infuriate me that a poor referee decision did a lot to derail that. But rather than be salty that an Irishman, fluent in French and with a middle name of Pierre, potentially cost us the World Cup, I really want to take my hat off and thank that golden generation of players for making me believe, if only for a couple of weeks, that our tiny, proud nation could be world champions. Thanks for watching.